Assalamualaikum everyone. Welcome to the MPG podcast series, and I'm being honored today to be joined by Brother Ali Ahmed, and he is a detective in Union County Prosecutor Office. And without further ado, I would like to have him introduce himself to us.
Thank you so much for having me, Lemia. It's a pleasure being here. So my name is Ali Ahmed. I'm a detective with the Union County Prosecutor's Office. I've been there now for about a year, give or take. And prior to that, I was a police officer with the NJIT Police Department in Newark. That I was there for about a year, and after that, I transferred to Glenridge Police Department. It's a small town mesh between Bloomfield and Montclair. I was there for 3 years. So now going on my fifth year, inshallah. And I'm currently assigned to the trial unit. Hopefully very soon gonna get moved to narcotics and intelligence.
Oh, very impressive. So when we look, at the fabric of our community and law enforcement, it plays a very vital role in keeping us safe. Yet many of us see it from the outside. We really don't know much about it from the inside, right?
Mhm.
From frontline campus policing to municipal safety to high stakes criminal investigators and so on. So tell me what really inspired you to get into this role?
To be honest with you, it was more like for me, it was personal. I'm a first generation police officer in my family. I come from an Egyptian background. My parents born and raised in Egypt, and I'm born here. So we
Right.
didn't have any law enforcement in our family. Law enforcement was kind of like, it was, they intimidated my family, or my family's very intimidated by police officers in general. So I kind of wanted to change the narrative, which led me to what I'm doing now. And ever since I was a young kid, I always wanted to become a detective. Um, I wanted to live my dream, and I know I needed to start somewhere. So I got hired by NJIT Police off of Indeed. I was just somewhere doing security, and I applied to NJIT, and I don't know, somehow they took me out of left field, and I became a police officer with them, and that led me to my path now. But it was something that I've been wanting to do since I was younger. Definitely a passion of mine, and I kind of want to bridge that gap between law enforcement and the Muslim community, because like I said, a lot of Muslims, they're intimidated by police officers. So I kind of just wanted to change that narrative a little bit.
That's really good. And it's so true, right? And even though in our cultures as well, like everyone, oh, I want to become a doctor, or I want him to be an engineer. But then they always forget that being in law enforcement, it's an essential thing, especially within our cultures and community. It plays, like as I said, a vital role. So tell us, how did you become a detective? What did you go to school for? Like walk us through your life. So that way,
Uh,
if someone who is a youth or someone at a younger age who's really interested to take that path, what are the things that you have gone through?
Yeah, so I mean, I went to Rutgers University in Newark. I got my bachelor's degree from there.
Okay.
I majored in criminal justice, and I knew I wanted to become a police officer. It was more like an inevitable type of thing. It was a matter of time. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. So I got my undergrad from there. After that, I got hired by NJIT. The luck of the draw. Um, then I was there, like I said, for about a year. I decided I wanted to do a little bit more. The job, it was kind of a starter job for me. And I felt like I needed to, I wanted to do the real police work, transfer to Glenridge, where it's kind of like more fast-paced, more municipal, where I'm responding to calls for service. I'm getting a chance to really speak to the community and work in an actual municipality. And I did that. I did very well. I succeeded. Then I decided I wanted to just become a little bit more than a body. I wanted to use my mind. So while I was at Glenridge, I was like, you know what? I should have did this while I was at NJT, and I didn't do it. I got my master's degree from Fairleigh Dickinson. I paid out of my pocket. I should have did it at NJT. They would have paid for it, but that's a story for another day.
Right.
Then got my master's degree, and I decided, hey, you know what? Let me apply to prosecutors' offices to become a detective. And Union County Prosecutor's Office, they took a chance on me. I love the job. I love what I do now, and I just started doing my doctorate, in educational leadership from Centenary University in Hackettstown, while simultaneously, being a detective for.
MashaAllah, your doctorate. That's very impressive, actually.
Yeah, I
That's
appreciate
really
that.
good.
Yeah, thank you.
So I would say, a high schooler first, like juniors or maybe like a college students they're kind of like want to follow your footsteps, right? What should they be focusing on today? Are there any specific subjects, sports, clubs, that they should join to build that right foundation to become like, to join law enforcement?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. So I'm a part of this organization. It's partnered with the Civil Service Commission, the CSC. Just basically, what I do is like I'm a mentor as well. So I mentor people in the state of New Jersey. I'm one of 20 mentors in the state, and we're assigned random mentees who want to choose a career path in law enforcement because they don't know how to they don't know what the steps entail, how to get the process started. So just a general overview of, what it would take for somebody just graduating high school or, going to college and becoming a cop. You don't need to have a college degree to become a local police officer. Like, we'll use the example of like Patterson Police. You don't need to have a degree. You just need to have a high school diploma. That's the minimum requirement to become a police officer. There's two separate things, two separate entities. There is the civil service. Some towns are civil service towns. They're backed by the Civil Service Commission, and some towns, smaller towns, are chiefs towns. You can go on policeapp.com to apply for those chiefs towns. And that's just kind of like testing. You'll do like a written test, a physical test, a psychological test, medical test. Once you pass all those steps, police department will send you for a background investigation. If everything in your background clears, then they would send you to the academy. That's a chief's town. Civil service is more, it's like a test. Like you're actually doing a test via the state, written test, and depending on how high you score or how low you score, certain municipalities, the town that you live in, that would be the first town that would reach out to you if you score high on the test.
Oh, okay. So, is there any community service or volunteer work that looks really good on your future application? And then the second part of that question, how does giving back early prepares you for that badge?
I think giving back early, like I was saying earlier, police, it's a very noble profession. So what it is if you're giving back at a young age, if you're getting involved in, community initiatives, community outreach initiatives, and things of that sort, once you become a police officer or you're in the process, police, they look into everything. They look into when you were a juvenile, they look into, when you were in high school, when you were in college. They can go all the way back and do a background investigation, and pretty much find out everything. That's why I always tell people, like I always tell youth, I have nieces and nephews who, ask me, how do I become a police officer? And
Right,
I said, this is something that's just not done overnight. It's not something that happens when you're 18 or 19 years old, say, hey, I want to become a cop. No, you have to, be somebody of, good morals, good background. It happens at a young age. So
right.
I just think also as far as like, volunteer work, you can become a volunteer firefighter, you can become a volunteer AMT or a paramedic. All those things look very, very well when you're in the process to become a police officer, because they look at everything. They look at everything,
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can bring a different dynamic to a police agency that somebody else, is not able to bring.
That's really good to know. So many local police departments, they offer that youth police academies or explorer programs. Did you ever participate in any of those? And would you recommend them for hands-on experience?
I would definitely recommend them. I personally never really, participated in any of those. I should have. I was kind of like just more focused on my studies. I was, just getting everything together. But definitely, I would recommend that to anybody that's, pursuing law enforcement as a profession. It kind of gets your feet wet even at a young age. Even though it's not similar to what a real police academy is, but it's definitely a good introduction. And it kind of teaches you, like, it gives you like a baseline of what to look forward in your career, if that's what you choose.
Are there any specific programs that you recommend? Or
Um, I mean, the youth academy is great if you're doing that at a young age. The civil service mentorship group. Also, other organizations you don't need to be a police officer to be a part of is like MALIA. It's a Muslim American Law Enforcement Association. You have Hispanic American Law Enforcement Association. All these organizations are a good way to kind of, get your feet wet or to get to know, law enforcement officers who can assist you, further.
All right, great. So I did hear from you that to become a police officer, you don't necessarily have to have like a college degree, which I recommend as a mother. Like I always say, have your
Absolutely.
college degree, regardless.
Absolutely.
You don't know how things in the future usually change. But then let's say, does it really help? Like let's say for college students who are listening. Does someone becoming into like a criminal justice major to become a detective, like, do you believe that having like a college degree sets you like on good foundations to kind of like grow within the law enforcement?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. I would definitely recommend it. Just because you don't need a college degree to become a police officer,
Right.
you shouldn't get a college degree. I wanted to further my education. And people ask me, hey, why are you doing your doctorate? You don't need a
Right.
doctorate. I tell them I work for a prosecutor's office. Like my chief, he's a doctor. I can't, I don't know how many police officers that are doctors in the state of New Jersey. I know it's a very
Hmm.
small percentage, but what you do ultimately is you kind of like separate yourself from the next person because, like, for example, in a prosecutor's office, when it's time for promotion, like from a detective to a sergeant to a lieutenant to a captain, that kind of separates you from the pack. So I definitely, to anybody, I have, my nephews, they want to become police officers. They ask,
Right.
say, I don't want to get, I don't want to finish college. I said, no, you need to finish college first. That's number one. That's the most important thing, having a good foundation, and you do
Hmm.
that for personal development. That helps yourself.
Excellent. So, as you had mentioned as well, that there's a lot of thorough background checks.
Mhm.
What advice, especially now in a world where we're kind of all the time on social media, we don't really think of what we do, right? Sometimes it's just we act silly, or maybe we just think it's the right thing at the moment, right? For young people, regarding maintaining like a clean social media presence, making the right personal choices during their teenage years and college years, what advice would you give them?
I mean, everything is discoverable. Social media, everything you post, the way I look at it is like once you put something out to the universe, you can't take it back. So,
Right.
once we do a background investigation, on somebody that potentially wants to become a law enforcement officer or a detective, their social media to us is discoverable. We bring them in, we ask them to log into their account if their account is private.
Oh, okay.
And then we view all their pictures and, we see, if they have any, biases or prejudices, anything like that. So as far as social media goes, it's very important to keep, I know everybody in this day and age, everybody uses social media. And
Right.
it's a great tool. It's a great tool.
Absolutely.
It can
Yeah.
be your best friend or it can be your worst enemy. So I
Hmm.
definitely, I recommend to people and I tell people all the time, like the young youth and, the mentees, I say use social media to your advantage and use social media the right way. Don't use it in a negative way. So that's just my advice.
That's a great advice. So again, when it comes to like mental and emotion readiness, right? Like we want to be mentally ready as parents, as, someone who really wants to go into law enforcement, beyond the physical fitness. I'm sure there's like extensive like, training and things like that. What kind of mindset or mental resilience does a young person need to, have to handle the high stakes of responsibility and clinical investigation? Like for me, I'm in the medical field and we see a lot, right? Like, if you could be testing a patient, the patient passes away, and then like you have to build that, right? That you kind of don't break down every time you see like a child who's really like has cancer or something. So when it comes to law enforcement, what kind of advice would you give, or how can you prepare yourself to have that mental resilience to become like, in a profession like law enforcement?
Yeah, I mean, law enforcement, like you said, it's just like the medical field. You see a
Mhm.
lot, you deal with a lot, and unfortunately, what that does is over time, I hate to say it, kind of like desensitizes you to an extent. You're gonna see stuff on the job. You're gonna see dead bodies. You're gonna see, shootings, things of that nature, and you don't want to see it. But like I said, it desensitizes you. So I think as far as preparation goes, you have to learn to like decompress. Like, you have to once you leave work. You have to find an outlet or like other hobbies that you can partake in. That way, you just get your mind off. And in anticipation too of your career, if that's something that you want to do, like I said, you have to find an outlet. If you like to read, make sure you read. For me, my outlet is I love to spend time with my family. I love to go to
Mhm.
the gym. I love to play basketball. So all of these things, it removes me and allows me to decompress from the job. And I think that allows me to stay, physically fit and mentally fit. Once I go back to work, I'm kind of, rejuvenated and refreshed where I'm not thinking about everything that happened before because I took that little bit of time to do the things that I want to do.
Great. I know we had talked a little bit about, parents may want their children to be like, in different professions. However, there are a lot of pushbacks. Like if someone is interested to be in law enforcement, some parents may have concerns. And I understand some of these concerns are valid, right? What advice do you kind of give to young professionals or young people on how they have that conversation with their parents if they are interested in law enforcement?
I'll speak about my situation personally.
Mm-hmm.
My parents, they didn't want me to become a police officer, and rightfully so. I don't blame them, because like you said, most parents are scared. It's a dangerous profession.
All
Um,
right.
you you want to sleep at night knowing your son or your daughter is going to come home or is going to be safe. I
Right.
mean, as far as those conversations go, I think you just have to, let them know, like you said, eventually you want to use your platform, you want to change the narrative, you want to be a public servant because ultimately anybody that chooses this profession, you do it because you want to help people. That's the main reason why you want to do it. That's why I do it. I do it to serve the public. I do it, to give back to my community because I never had a police officer that I can look up to, in my family or anybody that I know and say, hey, you know what is it like? So I want that next generation to come to me and say, hey, you did 20 years or you did 25 years. Can you tell me more about the profession? It's a career that I want to choose. So I just think those conversations, when you have them with your family, it's something that, you need to let them know, like, this is something that ultimately I just want to do to use my platform.
All right. Are there any like shadowing opportunities or internships or something within the prosecutor's office or local office departments for college students?
Yeah, absolutely. We always during the school year, right now we're in the summer where we're heading towards the summer. During the school year, we usually have we'll have college kids from Kane, college students from Kane, or we'll have a bunch of high school kids from, different high schools. They'll come visit the prosecutor's office. We'll let them know, what the prosecutor's office does, what it entails, because we're very different from a local police department. We work, with lawyers, we're with assistant prosecutors, with judges. So our job is a little bit different. We teach them the legalities. We always just like set things up. So we have, people reaching out to us, schools reaching out to us. Hey, can we come visit your office? Can you have a detective and assistant prosecutor speak with our students about, what you guys do, what the prosecutor's office entails? And then we come to schools. We come to schools with presentations. We do PowerPoint presentations, and we come
Mhm.
speak to the youth and to college kids about what we do.
Great. How can someone like learn about all of these offerings? Are there any like somewhere that they can sign up for, or they just have to go to a school to figure it out?
No, I mean we offer brochures, prosecutors' offices.
Okay.
We offer like kind of like literature and brochures
Mhm.
that we send out. I can definitely provide you with some of those brochures and literatures after we're done.
All right, perfect. So physical fitness, right? We I know it's like are there any requirements? Like let's say someone who's, I don't want to say certain specifics or whatever, but
Right.
when it comes to like physical fitness and habits, what advice do you really give to the young athletes or students to maintain a healthy lifestyle that prepares them for a life like in law enforcement?
Yeah, I mean, law enforcement is it's a very rigorous job. Unfortunately, I hate to say you have to go to a 6-month police academy. Whether you're going to work for the state police. The state police is pretty much the highest police or the highest jurisdiction in the
Mhm.
state. Their police academy is like different breed. I don't know if it's something that I could have ever did, which is why
Right.
I'm a state trooper. But ultimately, just generally speaking, you need to be in somewhat of physical shape. We do testing. We do a lot of testing. Prosecutors' offices do it. Local municipalities do it when they send you to the police academy. You need to run a mile and a half. Male and female, the criteria is different. So I'm just going to speak in a general sense. You need to run a mile and a half in like 15 minutes and 55 seconds. You need to do 25 push-ups, 25 sit-ups, a vertical jump, and a 300 yard dash or something like that. So what I would say is, if this is the career path that you ultimately want to pursue, your eating habits, everything you do, you need to, obviously be physically fit, go to the gym prior to going to the police academy, because a lot of people say, hey, I have like another month to go to the police academy. I'm going to be totally fine. And then once they go to the police academy or once they have a physical fitness test, they kind of fall flat on their face and they didn't expect, the requirements of what the tests are. So mentally fit and physically fit, it both works hand in hand.
Excellent. So, with tech is like technology is always overpowers us, right?
Hmm.
And law enforcement, to my understanding, which is a little, but it's kind of like changing a lot, with cyber investigation, forensic tech. So for someone who's really a tech savvy and loves computers, are there any specific career path that exists for them in the field?
In the field, yes. Local municipalities, not really, because you're starting off your career on patrol, and then it just goes
Right.
like a normal rank. And the prosecutor's offices, we have like forensic interviewers, we have forensic scientists, we have a unit like a high tech unit where they deal with everything that's just high tech, like phone dumps. They deal with extracting phones. Also, for prosecutors' offices, there are opportunities for anybody that's like super, super tech savvy.
Mhm. So especially at this age, there's a lot of peer pressure,
Mm.
right? And some of them they want to just prove themselves. They really can't say no, right? But it's tough. Like especially if you really, as you said, like you have to have clean social media. You have to like what, with coming from that sense, from being peer pressure to do certain things that you really don't want. How would you kind of like guide them or advise them to stay strong against that peer pressure?
Yeah, I mean it's I hate to say it, like with this profession it's like it's the hardest profession to get and the easiest job to lose. That's what we always say amongst each other.
Mhm.
For like any youth or anybody that chooses this profession or just even in general, just stay out of trouble. Be very, very mindful of what you do on and what you post on social media. I think social media is like the number one cause of like people getting in trouble nowadays, because
Mhm.
they see a whole bunch of things like fake lifestyles, things that are very fictional. So just keep a clean slate, keep a clean background, try to stay out of trouble. Every interaction you have, whether it's with law enforcement or just in general with people, just be respectful, be kind to anybody. That's just pretty much the advice that I have.
Great, great. So that's very good. So being a detective, right? What is the one takeaway? That you work in a prosecutor office, you see so many things. What is the one takeaway that you would want to let our youth know for being in that profession?
The one takeaway, it's very interesting. If you're looking for a career that's extremely unpredictable, which is good because some people love unpredictable. This is definitely the profession or the rank for you, because every day I don't know what I'm getting myself into, which is sometimes a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah. All right. So I understand you're part of the Muslim American Police Society. Tell
Hmm.
us a little bit more about that. What is really the Muslim American Police Society? What does it do? Is it just for people who are already into law enforcement? So if you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, so the Muslim American Police Society, we used to, well, we still do. Like we had a different name before, but we
Right.
just recently changed it to MAPS. It used to be called New Jersey Muslim Officer Society, NJMOS, but it's like a fraternal organization, fraternal brotherhood. What we do, we pretty much like when it's around like Thanksgiving, like we give away turkeys. We go to different masjids, the masjid in Elizabeth. We give out turkeys. We have iftars. Every year we conduct an iftar and then we conduct an Eid celebration. You have to, unfortunately, you have to be a law enforcement officer to be a part of that organization. That's just strictly law enforcement, but it's a great way to network. It's a great way to, speak to other police officers. Like we reach out to one another, like if we have a case with another municipality or another agency, and we reach out to them and say, hey, does anybody in the group chat or does anybody know a police officer in like Woodland Park or like Paramus? And they direct us. So it's a great networking organization, and it's also an organization that we do so much to give back to the community.
Very good. Can someone volunteer to your events or things that you're hosting? I understand you said you have to be a law enforcement. Like, let's say, some of the community members are interested to volunteer with distributing some of those, like during Thanksgiving or during the iftar. Is that something that they can participate in during the?
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%. You don't need to be a law enforcement officer to be a volunteer. It can pretty much be anybody. I can provide you with our president, his contact information. He's a
Sure.
sergeant. He's a sergeant. I don't know if you know him. He's with the state
I
police.
think I do. He had actually came to the some of the local masjids that around us here,
Yeah.
Malik or something, right?
Yes, Mudasamatic. We actually I want to say like 2 or 3 months ago we went to El Ghazali and Wayne, and
Okay.
we conducted like coffee with a cop.
Oh, very good.
So that's
Okay.
something that we go to different Muslim schools, and we have like coffee
Mhm.
with a cop. That way the youth can get to know our organization and law enforcement.
Good. I'm not sure if you're allowed to answer that question, but it's a community question, right? So yeah, we all have heard, and I know these cases and scenarios happen, like, shooting at a masjid, certain things like that. The community at stake, scare, fear, terror. It's always like, what advice or how can you really prepare different organizations? I understand, especially with masajids or local communities, they have like, security, they can get more security be around them. But just like as community members, how can we be prepared or, like, I don't know. Like it kind of scares us at once that you kind of like want to exclude yourself from being, but then you're like, no, it's my faith. I want to be able to go to the masjid and nothing like that should fear me. But again, we're human, right? So what kind of like if you're able to?
Yeah, no. So, like in a general sense, for like any masajid, I live close to a masjid.
Hmm.
It's good to get in contact with like your local law enforcement. Have your local law enforcement come visit your masjid. Know the layout of your masjid. Have like the law enforcement come and like have a table for like giveaways and things of that nature, just to get to know you, just to build that relationship. It's better to always know somebody, before something happens, or know your law
Absolutely.
enforcement before something happens than,
Mhm.
God forbid, after. Better to be proactive than reactive to a scenario or situation. So it's good to just build those partnerships with your masjids. No proper safety protocols. Have proper safety protocols implemented in your masjids. Even even have not even just like God forbid if there's a situation, but you can even have like I'm a law enforcement liaison for the New Jersey EMT society. So what that is the EMTs, they can come to your local masjid and they can teach you how to use a tourniquet, or how to do CPR. God forbid if something ever happens. These are
Right.
all like proactive measures that I can definitely provide you with contact informations for.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. So before I leave it to the few of our attendees, if they have any questions, are there any resources or anything for the community that your prosecutors offer? Like
You
anything
mean
in general? Like any resources? Are there any resources like, to, teach educational resources, any learning resources, anything that you think may benefit the community, not just the youth?
Yeah, I mean, we have like just in general, like if we have victims in our county, we have victim witness advocates that our office provides. That's like free of charge. And we also have, like I said, we have these different events where we go out to local municipalities, and we speak to the youth and we speak to the community about what the prosecutor's office entails and what we do, and just kind of like meet and greets.
Excellent. So we have Melinda and Ahmed. Do you have any questions for Brother Ali?
Um, I do have one question.
Right.
Regarding some, youth that they want to, inshallah, in the future, um, take their route of becoming a police officer, inshallah. I've talked to him before, a few other brothers that like attend the youth group with me. Um, Sometimes though, like, they're still young, but they don't do the right decision, or like
Yeah.
think before they act. I like this is I'm talking about in general, like, because I'm not talking about like one specific person or anything, but just in general, because they're still young, so they don't always like think before they act. Like, any general advice to help them to like set the tone early on, because I know like any habit that you build when you're younger, it's much more difficult to lose later on than because like it's easier to lose a habit and like build good habits when you're young than it is when you're older and you've been doing it for such a long time.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that question. Like I was just telling Sister Lemia, like, anybody that's aspiring, to choose this profession, we look at everything. We look at everything from when you're a young age. Every ticket, for example, like every motor vehicle violation, that's something that is discoverable if you decide this profession. Our background investigations, law enforcement background investigations in general are very, very, very extensive. We find out everything. We ask you to list every interaction you've had with law enforcement at a young age. So even if it's not an interaction with law enforcement that you've had, and it's like, a few of the youth acting up, just like just be good, be good, get involved with your messages, get involved with your local communities. Like I said, there's so much community outreach, community initiatives out there where you can become a local EMT, you can become a local firefighter, you can help out the masjid. All this is stuff that you can, list on your resume, or, it goes in as like a resume booster, where if this is the profession you choose, or any profession in general, now professions, they look at volunteer work. They want somebody who's involved in volunteer work, who did, extracurricular things, because they want that person to be part of their agency, or be part of their organization, which will in turn, bring notoriety to whatever place that they're going to be employed with.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, no problem.
Melinda, do you have any questions? Probably not. Okay, so before I close, I just want to leave like a short message. So to our youth, students, young professionals who are listening or will be listening to this podcast later, I just want to remind them that this is just informational, educational, and they would have like if you need any other additional information, they would have to reach out or learn about your resources. And also to remember that a career in law enforcement is not just about just I want to be a cop, right? There's so much into it. What you really see on television is not always the truth, right? It's a path of true public service, deep community impact, a vital leadership. The choices we make today or tomorrow, they are who they shape us, right? The dedication you show in your studies, your character, and your willingness to serve others are the building blocks for a future where you can truly protect and uplift the communities. I truly want to have a massive thank you for our guest speaker, Detective Aly Ahmed from the Union County Prosecutor's Office, for sharing his invaluable time, wisdom, and career insight with us today. Brother Ali, it was a true honor to have you today. I personally learned so much, and I really want to thank you for your time and dedication to be here with us, especially with FIFA World Cup. And you said you're Egyptian, so there was an Egyptian game. So that speaks a lot about your dedication. So I want to really thank you so much for that.
Of course, no problem. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad, to provide any information that I have, any resources that I can, provide to you. Anything you need, don't hesitate to reach out. Ahmed and Melinda, also, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Sister, let me, if you want to share my contact information with them or anybody else, um, feel free.
Absolutely. And I just want to make sure I have your consent to have this posted on YouTube or WhatsApp groups. You're okay with me sharing it.
Absolutely.
All right,
Absolutely.
very good. Thank you so much and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your
Assalamu
weekend.
alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Salaam alaikum.